Whisper of the Grove. A mystical fantasy novel. Prologue. There are places even the oldest maps dare not mark, realms too ancient to tame, too wild to chart. The Whispering Forest was one such place. Older than kingdoms, deeper than any river's root, it stood cloaked in silence at the edge of the world, humming softly with memory. They said the forest was alive. That it remembered every footfall, every whisper, every promise ever broken beneath its boughs. Elara did not believe in legends. But legends, it turned out, believed in her. Chapter 1, The Edge of the Known. Elara stood at the cusp of the ancient forest, her boots dusted with the red clay of the outer lands. Before her, mist coiled low across the moss-covered ground like breath from a sleeping beast. Great trees loomed ahead, their canopies lost to a silver sky. No bird sang. No wind stirred. Her fingers curled around the leather strap of her satchel, brushing against the brittle parchment inside. The map had been her grandmother's, old, stained with oil and rain, marked with strange glyphs and paths that defied geography. It had once been dismissed as fantasy, a relic from a time when people still told stories around the hearth. Now, it was the only thing that had brought her here. The villagers had tried to stop her. Nothing comes back from the Whispering Forest, they'd said, eyes full of quiet fear. But Elara had always felt a pull, a thread tying her to the wild edge of the world. Some voices call you softly until you no longer remember a time when you didn't hear them. Taking a breath heavy with damp earth and the electric scent of moss, she stepped over the threshold of roots and time. The forest stirred. Chapter 2, The Forest Breathes. The moment Elara crossed the ring of ancient stone markers, half-buried, etched with unreadable runes, the world behind her fell away. The air thickened. Light filtered through the trees in shifting beams, as though the sun itself had entered into some secret conversation with the leaves. With each step, something shifted. Vines lifted lazily as she passed, like curtains drawn back for a guest. Flowers turned their faces toward her. The silence was not empty, but listening. Elara's heartbeat slowed. The forest seemed to pulse in rhythm with it. Then came the sound, low at first, a hum vibrating through bark and bone. It resonated in her chest, not a warning, but a welcome. She pressed onward. Chapter 3, The Guardian of the Grove. Night came all at once. Elara had not noticed the sky dimming, nor the way the mist had vanished, replaced by drifting particles of soft green light. She found herself in a wide glade, encircled by mushrooms that glowed with an inner fire. In the center rose a figure. It was not human, nor beast. It shimmered with translucent wings like gossamer and bore no face, only eyes like twin galaxies. Elara, it said, though its mouth never moved. She froze. How do you know my name? We have always known it. You are marked by memory. By longing. It raised an arm of braided root and light, and two paths appeared behind it. One was a trail of gold leaves, narrow but warm. The other twisted into darkness, overgrown and dense. One path returns you to the life you left. The other leads to what you seek. She hesitated, the weight of choice suddenly unbearable. But she had not come this far to return with questions. Elara stepped toward the dark. Chapter 4, The Mirror Clearing. The trees narrowed, bending unnaturally close. Roots tangled at her feet. The deeper she went, the more she felt the forest turning inward, as if walking not through a place, but through a mind. Then she came to a clearing where time stopped. Dozens of mirrors floated in the air, unmoving, each one reflecting a different version of her. A child, eyes full of fear. A girl, holding a dying flower. A woman, hardened by grief. One mirror showed her as she was now, mud-stained, wild-eyed, unsure. She stepped closer. Her reflection tilted its head without her. "What do you fear most?" it asked, in her own voice. "To be nothing," she whispered. The reflection smiled, a sad, knowing curve of the lips, and reached out. Elara touched her own hand. The mirror shattered into stardust. Chapter 5, Becoming. When she awoke, the trees had changed. They bowed in silent respect. A glowing pattern had etched itself across her skin, sigils in a language she could suddenly read. The symbols meant balance, truth, memory. The guardian reappeared beside her, smaller now, humbled. "You carry us now," it said. "The forest breathes through you." "I don't understand," she murmured. "You will." A breeze stirred. The trees swayed gently. The forest no longer watched her. It listened with her. Chapter 6, The Return. When Elara stepped out from beneath the final branch, the dawn broke across a field she no longer recognized. The world was unchanged, and yet utterly new. She looked behind her, but the entrance had vanished. In her hands was no treasure, no weapon, no proof. Only memory. And power. And peace. Epilogue. They say the whispering forest still speaks. But now, when it does, it speaks with her voice. And every time someone listens to the wind and wonders if it's calling them, somewhere deep within the green, Elara smiles. Because every legend begins with a step into the unknown. Whisper of the Grove. Part 2, The Song Beneath Stone. Chapter 7, The Silent Valley. The village of Relwyn had not changed. Children still chased painted wind chimes in the market square. Merchants still shouted about turnips and honey. Smoke curled lazily from chimney tops like the sighs of sleeping giants. But Elara had changed, and the valley felt it. The moment she stepped past the cobbled threshold into the village proper, birds fell quiet. Lanterns flickered, then steadied. A dog barked once, then slunk under a cart. Eyes turned. Murmurs stirred. She had only been gone 9 days. But to those who remembered the stories, the old ones, before the empires came, before the forest gates were closed, Elara returned not as a girl but as a question. A wound reopened. A prophecy reborn. She walked slowly through the square, glowing symbols dim beneath her collarbone, and for the first time in her life, the world bent around her. Chapter 8, The Stone That Sang. It began the next morning. She awoke to the sound, not a noise, exactly, but a pressure behind her ears. A vibration. A call. It led her to the cliff overlooking the valley. There, jutting from the hillside like a buried tooth, stood an ancient standing stone. She had passed it her entire childhood, never giving it a second glance. But now, it hummed. Low. Deep. Sad. She stepped closer. A voice, not unlike the guardian's, whispered in her mind. "You carry the mark. The grove has spoken. But the grove is not the end. It is the door." "What door?" she asked aloud. The stone answered by blooming. Cracks glowed across its surface, and from them sprouted curling vines of silverleaf. Symbols ignited across its base, the same runes that adorned her skin. The humming intensified until it became music, distant and impossible, like the memory of a song. Then the stone split clean down the center with a sound like thunder swallowed in silk. A stairway descended into the dark. Chapter 9. The Chamber of Seeds. Elara hesitated only a moment before lighting her lantern and stepping into the hollow earth. The stairs were ancient, worn smooth by time, slick with moss. The air was thick with the scent of petrichor and wild sage. And below, far below, was a chamber. It opened into a dome of roots and stone, glowing faintly with the same golden breath of the forest. In the center stood a pedestal carved from crystallized bark. Atop it rested a seed. It was enormous, twice the size of her head, and pulsing gently with internal light, like a sleeping heart. A plaque read, "To awaken what sleeps, one must carry both memory and courage." As she reached for it, her fingers trembling, a voice cut through the dark. "Not every tree bears fruit worth saving." Elara spun. A figure stood behind her, cloaked in thorns and shadow, eyes like sap frozen in flame. Chapter 10, The Thornsworn. The stranger moved with the silence of roots beneath stone. He wore no crown, but power bent around him like wind before a storm. "Elara of the Grove," he said, tasting her name like bitter tea. "Did you think the forest was the only force that remembers?" "I don't know who you are," she replied, steadying her breath, "but I didn't come here to fight." He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "No. You came to wake the seed. To give life to what should not rise. The forest chooses, but it does not always understand." She felt it then, deep beneath her skin, a warning. The seed pulsed faster, sensing danger. Or destiny. "I was chosen," Elara said. "So was I," he replied. And from his back unfurled wings, not of light, but of bark and briar, cracked and withered, pulsing with old rage. Chapter 11, Duel of Roots. The chamber erupted in vines and flame. Thorn branches lashed from the walls. The seed glowed brighter, caught in the tide of magic. Elara dodged left, rolled behind a pillar, and reached for the runes she barely understood. But the forest was with her. Her hands ignited with golden script, and from her palms burst radiant tendrils of living light. They met the Thornsworn's attack midair, hissing, crackling. He snarled. "The forest forgets. But I do not." "Then remember this," she said, and hurled the light forward. The two forces collided in a burst of moss and fire, and when the echoes faded, Elara stood alone. The Thornsworn had vanished, no ashes, no blood. Only silence. And the seed, now glowing fiercely, had split down the center. Inside, something stirred. Chapter 12, What Grows from Light. From the cracked shell emerged not a tree, nor a beast, but a small being. Childlike. Barely taller than Elara's waist. Its eyes were mirrors of starlight, and from its shoulders sprouted delicate leaves like wings. It looked at her and smiled. "Mother," it said. Her breath caught. "No. I'm not." But the being only tilted its head and pressed a tiny hand against her chest. Where it touched, the runes flared. "You carry the forest. You carry the seed. Now you must carry the world." And as the chamber filled with light and song, Elara understood. Her journey through the whispering forest had been just the beginning. The world was older than she knew. And something much larger was awakening. Whisper of the Grove. Part 3, The Sky Root Accord. Chapter 13, The Seedling and the Sky. The child of the seed did not sleep. By the second night, Elara noticed it no longer cast a shadow. It walked beside her in silence as they climbed from the ancient chamber back into the waking world, its feet never quite touching the earth. Its eyes, pools of soft starlight, never blinked. And though it spoke little, Elara could feel its thoughts drifting beside hers like warm mist through leaves. When they emerged beneath the moonlight, the trees bowed in reverence. The stars pulsed faintly above. The seedling turned its face skyward. "Something calls from above," it said, voice like a bell rung underwater. "The forest gave me breath, but the sky gave me name." "What name?" Elara asked softly. It turned to her, and for the first time, smiled with sadness. "I do not remember." Chapter 14, The Skyroot Stone. 2 days later, they reached the ridge of Elaran. A jagged cliffside carved by wind and time, long thought sacred by the valley tribes. No birds flew above it. No grass grew atop it. It was a place of silence and old oaths. The seedling walked ahead, unblinking. The runes on Elara's skin began to glow again, brighter this time, alive with heat and pull. A storm brewed low on the horizon, quiet but gathering. At the cliff's edge stood a monolith. Taller than any tree. Black as obsidian, veined with roots of silver. It hummed faintly when Elara approached, resonating with her chest like a tuning fork made of earth and memory. The seedling reached out, pressed its hand against the stone. And the sky answered. Chapter 15, The Celestial Accord. A wind unlike any Elara had ever felt surged across the cliffs. It smelled of stars, cold, ancient, and endless. The clouds parted violently, revealing an expanse not of sky but of light, woven in patterns, like veins across the heavens. Elara gasped. It was not the sky as she knew it. It was alive. The monolith split open, not cracked but unfolded, like a seed, like the forest before, and from within emerged a creature of woven bark and star silk. It floated, faceless but not voiceless. The accord has been remembered. Elara stepped back instinctively, shielding the seedling, but it only stood taller beside her, silent and ready. Long ago, the being continued, its voice inside her, deep and endless, the world was whole. The grove, the stone, and the sky. But the accord was broken. The Thornsworn defied the order. The roots were cut. The stars fell silent. Elara's fingers twitched. What do you want from me? Not want. Need. The grove chose you. The seed chose you. The sky accepts you. You are to be the bridge. Chapter 16, The Falling Star. That night, they camped in silence. The seedling stared upward, its gaze distant, full of longing. Elara, it said suddenly, do you remember being small? I remember being afraid, she replied. And angry. And stubborn. The seedling blinked. I think I was once all those things. But I wasn't born to remember. I was born to begin. It lay down beside her, cradled in soft moss. She brushed a strand of silvery vine from its brow, a lump rising in her throat. Far above them, a star broke loose from the heavens. Not a meteor, something larger. A flaming orb trailing vines of light and ash. It fell silently, crossing the world like a drawn blade. The sky itself groaned. Chapter 17, The Thornsworn Return. By dawn, the birds had stopped singing. The sun rose red. And from the north came riders, not on horseback, but mounted on beasts of root and bone, clad in armor that hissed with black sap. The Thornsworn had returned. They did not speak. They did not shout. They simply marched through the northern fields, and wherever they passed, the land withered. Elara and the seedling watched from the ridge. We need help, she whispered. No, said the seedling. We need remembrance. Chapter 18, The Memory Tree. There was one place left. Hidden deep in the forest's western roots was a tree Elara had only heard of in passing. The elders called it the Remembering One, a tree that did not speak but dreamed. A tree that kept the songs of the sky and the names of the fallen. It was guarded by silence. Fed by stars. They reached it in 3 days. It towered above the world like a cathedral. Its bark shimmered with symbols Elara had never seen, constantly shifting, rearranging themselves into ancient constellations. The seedling placed its hand against the trunk and closed its eyes. The tree sighed. And Elara's vision went white. Chapter 19, Vision of the First Accord. She stood in a world not her own. Forests stretched endless across silver skies. Great beasts with antlers of crystal drank from floating rivers. The sky and the land danced together, two lovers bound by light. She saw herself, or someone like her, standing beside a guardian, bearing the same runes, the same fire. Then she saw the breaking, Thornsworn cleaving through peace, jealousy in their hearts, convinced that control was wisdom. The accord shattered. And the world fell into memory. Chapter 20, The Awakening. Elara came to gasping, her hand on the seedling's shoulder. The memory had passed, but the knowing remained. I remember, she whispered. The seedling opened its eyes. So do I. Behind them, the wind rose. And in the distance, thunder walked. Chapter 21, The Map Beneath the Skin. Elara awoke under a sky swirling with violet clouds, her breath visible in the warm morning air. The runes etched along her arms and collarbone pulsed with soft golden light. As she moved, they shimmered, subtly shifting and rearranging. At first, she thought it was another spell echo, but when she stilled her breath and focused, a pattern emerged. Rivers. Valleys. Mountains. It was a map, not to places she had seen, but to places that remembered her. She traced one curve with her finger, and a vision flashed, a mountaintop crowned in flame, singing her name. The journey wasn't outward now, it was inward. Chapter 22, The Forgotten Vale. Guided by instinct and the glowing sigils on her skin, Elara and the seedling ventured westward. The terrain twisted strangely the farther they walked, trees with bark like glass, flowers that whispered as they closed, stones that pulsed with forgotten rhythms. Eventually, they descended into a deep ravine blanketed in perpetual mist. It was the Forgotten Vale, where even the stars refused to shine. Here, the air was thick with memory, and echoes of the past drifted in the fog. Elara saw flickers of her childhood, her fears, her joy, playing out in the mist like scenes on a stage. Nothing stayed dead in the vale. Chapter 23, The Witch of Windglass. At the center of the vale stood a tower woven from vines and broken mirrors. Within it lived the Witch of Windglass, blind, ageless, and forever humming a song no one else could hear. Elara entered with caution, feeling the pull of old magic the moment her foot crossed the threshold. The witch welcomed her not with words, but with a mirror. To mend the world, she rasped, you must first see what broke you. In the reflection, Elara did not see herself, but every version of herself she could have become. The witch smiled. Not every path is meant to be walked. Chapter 24, The Thread That Bleeds. Before Elara left the witch, she was given a gift, a tapestry, woven from her own potential. Each thread was a path, a memory, a scar. As she studied it, a crimson thread pulsed and bled, staining the others. This was the path of loss, the one she was walking. In it, she saw visions of flame and betrayal, a city in the sky aflame, the seedling screaming in her arms, and her own hands wrapped in vines of ash. The seedling touched the tapestry, and a single word echoed between them, not yet. The future was not set. But it was waiting. Chapter 25, The Stone Chorus. Leaving the vale behind, Elara followed the tapestry's pull to the singing cliffs, where great stone faces jutted from the rock and hummed in eternal harmony. They were remnants of the first accord, ancient beings of elemental stone that remembered the old songs. When Elara stepped among them, the runes on her skin glowed in response. The stones shifted. A path opened. The stone chorus sang her name in deep, echoing tones. Their voices showed her how to sing magic, not to cast it, but to become it. With this song, she shaped a bridge of mist and memory, leading into the storm beyond. Chapter 26, The Stormglass Arch. Beyond the singing cliffs stood the Stormglass Arch, a relic of a long-dead god. Lightning danced through its veins like blood. As Elara approached, the air thickened, and each breath sparked against her throat. The seedling whispered, it remembers the war. When she stepped through the arch, visions assaulted her. Battles fought with starlight blades, skyships crashing in flame, and the accord breaking. From the ruins emerged a guardian, half cloud, half stag, its eyes glowing with stormlight. It did not speak, but challenged her with wind and fury. Elara met its rage with calm. When the storm passed, the guardian bowed. She had earned its trust. Chapter 27, The Lightning-Born. The guardian, now bound to her cause, was called Kaler, the Lightning-Born. With it, Elara soared through broken skies and across fractured valleys, the world below a dream of green and gold. Kaler was more than transport, it was memory incarnate, holding truths she had not yet dared ask. As they traveled, it shared stories not through words, but sensations, warmth for joy, static for grief, thunder for wrath. Each tale layered upon Elara's spirit like rings in a tree. She felt herself changing, not just learning magic, but becoming it. And with each mile, the sky seemed to sigh a little louder. Chapter 28. The Spiral Library. In a ravine carved by ancient winds lay the Spiral Library, hidden from sight and time. Its walls spiraled upward endlessly, shelves climbing into stars. Books whispered secrets as they passed, their pages turning to face her. Here, she met the curator, a spectral owl with wings of parchment and eyes of ink. It spoke in riddles and riddled truths. "You are not the first," it said. "But you are the final echo." Elara found a book that bore her name, empty except for one line, "She who bridges cannot return unchanged." She closed it, feeling the truth settle like dust on her skin. Chapter 29, The Keeper of Echoes. In the heart of the Spiral Library, beneath a dome of shifting constellations, lived the Keeper of Echoes. They were neither man nor woman, but a shimmering shape formed from overlapping voices. The Keeper offered Elara a choice, to listen to the echoes of every past bridge and learn from them, or to forge her own path and remain blind to their fate. Elara chose to listen. Hours passed. Days. Each voice etched something into her, regrets, triumphs, warnings. She emerged with new wisdom and the weight of lives lived before her. "You carry their hope now," the Keeper said. "Do not waste it." Chapter 30, The Dying Moon. That night, Elara looked to the sky and gasped. The moon, once full and bright, was dimming. Its light flickered like a candle in wind. The seedling stared upward, face tight with sorrow. "The threads are fraying," it whispered. "The bond between root and sky is dying." In the dim light, the runes on Elara's skin grew cold. Magic itself was thinning. Creatures of the forest stirred in confusion, birds flying in circles, flowers blooming out of season. The moon's fading was not just omen, it was consequence. The Accord's failure was catching up with the world. And time, she feared, was running out. Like and subscribe for more stories like this one.